Welcome back, Bubble Craps enthusiasts. This is our third part of the tutorial in Bubble Craps Tracker and Analyzing. In this particular edition, we're going to go over the forecasting section, which is depicted right here on the right side of our screen. Previous versions have been about the basic editing of the roll tracker and the entry of the roll tracker information up here. This particular one, as stated, we're just going to go over this particular area here, which is the forecasting of rolls. As the name implies, it's going to try and forecast numbers that are going to be coming up on the next roll. Is this thing 100%? Is it even 80%? Not really, but it does help, mainly because what I personally look for are the lower end right here. So let's say in the case of we just had rolled a 10, so I'm going to go and take a look at a 10. It shows up here after a 10. We've had 4 9s come up, 4 7s, 3 8s, 3 5s, and down the row like this. In this particular case, it was actually correct where it said, look, a 3 6 being a 9 came after a 10. Sweet. I personally am worried about this lower end. In this case, there were no 3s, no 2s, and only 1 11 and 1 10. What that would tell me is that if we're a horn better, I probably wouldn't want to be betting on a horn number, since the likelihood of it coming up is fairly low. Just like the 10, not a very high probability. So if I happen to be buying a 10 or placing a 10, I may bring that down for this one roll, because my object when I play is to save as much money as I can, rather than to see how much money I can accumulate. Usually the wins will take place on their own. You'll make your money, but it's more important for me just to reduce my outlay and capitalize on the most common numbers rolled. Of course, statistically that would be our 5, 6, 8, and 9, excluding the 7, since we're probably not betting on the 7 as it is. So, going back to this up here, we were looking at the 4, the 8s, and the 5s as the most prevalent numbers. 4 9s, 4 7s, which we really don't care about, 3 8s, and 3 5s. So I would have been betting on, after the 10 had been rolled, I would have bet on either the 9 and the 8 and a 5 more than any other number. Okay? In this case, it would have actually paid off. Now, we have our 9 up there. Let's see what it actually displays after a 9. I click on this 9 right down here, and it will give me the after 9 value. If any other number wants to be displayed, just click on it in this first column here. Any number you click on, I clicked on the 5, it shows me the after 5 rolls. Click on the 8, it shows me the after 8s and such. Okay, going back to our number 9, the 7 is the most prevalent number, which statistically it should be. And so we have 6 7s coming up, 5 5s, 5 4s, and 4 9s. So I probably would be betting on the 5s, 4s, 9s, and possibly the 8, because the 8s and the 9s have both come up 4 times. Okay? Since there's only one difference between the 6 and the 7, I'm not too concerned about that. So again, I would be betting on 5s, 4s, 9s, 8s, and let's see what happens. I'm just going to click on my autoplay for a moment. This is just a version that I have in the testing program. You won't have this on your actual app. So I'm going to turn that off and get out here and turn it off again. Let's see if I can figure out. We were after the 5s, I believe. Maybe we were after 9s? No. I don't recall. I think we were after the 9s, so we went 6 and 8. So after our 9s, what did we have here? We had forgetting the 7s, we didn't care, so we went 9s and 8s. So after our 9s, we went actually a 6 and an 8. 6 was low, we actually increased, followed by a multiple number of 8s, which we had been betting on anyway. So it turned out okay, even though we had a 6 come up first. I kind of like that sequence, since even though I didn't have a 6, I wouldn't have been paid, but I would have been paid on my 8s, 8s, 8s right through here. Not a bad little play out for me there. As this plays through, obviously numbers will change, increase, and this little graph will fluctuate accordingly. Again, I'm at a 5 right now, and after this 5, horn number is pretty much non-existent, and no 10, so again I would be dropping my 10, but I would be looking at the 5, the 8s, the 5s, and maybe even the 4s right here, because all those seem to be sitting pretty high with the values of 5s. Not a bad little setup. We're actually on a pretty good roll, it looks like right now, because I'm looking at this right here. The shooter rolls display that we have 13 current rolls for this particular shooter. If I looked at our previous shooter, he had 6 rolls, or she had 6 rolls, either one, and they had made a total of 2 points. Okay, pretty quick and simple on this. Let's move on just a little bit now, just to kind of go over this screen. When we're looking at the overall session right here, we've seen we have 45 wins, 46 losses. So more than likely the don't is, ahead if we were just playing the pass line. What's interesting though, look at this right here. We have come out wins of 20 with come out losses of 8. So on the come out wins, being our 7 or 11, we've had 20 of those on a come out roll, whereas we've had a 2, a 3, or a 12 only come out 8 times on the come out roll. For me, that might say, well, you know what, let's take a look at, on a come out roll, I might want to lay the 4 or the 10 for $5 or $6, something in that area, and take the chance of the 7 coming up, along with my pass line bet. It's just worth a couple extra dollars to me. And then, of course, after the roll takes place, if I happen to collect on that 7, I now have covered my next pass line bet. Pretty simple. So even if I decide not to play or I lose on the next roll, I'm still ahead going into this next shooter. One thing I don't like as much is that this right here, this median roll, is at a 4.5. I prefer to play when it's 5 or greater. A 4.5, between 4 and 4.5, maybe even up to a 5, it's kind of a flip-flop. You win some, you lose some. You win some, you lose some. And you don't really get too far ahead. So you've got to be kind of cautious when you're playing. In that instance, I will normally just play with about 3 numbers out there, and that's it. So it may be a 5, 6, 8, or 6, 8, 9. Whatever these numbers are up here, the highest rolling ones after a particular number, I'll probably just play those values. That's it. So after this 9 as example, I'm going to leave out the 7. I would look at playing the 9, the 8, and the 5. And that's probably it. So in this, I'd probably be leaving out my 6. Okay? Let's move on a little bit. This here is kind of a critical little thing, and sometimes is the most important item for me to look at. I like this right here as being the most important, the median roll, but that follows closely by this number before 7 out. What that means is the number that came up, like for instance here, we have a 7 at the beginning of this roll display. This would be the number before the 7 out. So this was an 8, it was followed by a 7. That would tell me here now, this 8 would display a 7 after a hard 8. So we know that for sure there's been a hard 8 followed by a 7. So if I look down here on the 8s, I click on that, and there's an 8, hard 8, and it's been followed by a 7 4 out of 15 times. So we've had 15 hard 8s this session, but 4 of them have been followed by 7 for a 26% result of a 7 out. All right, the 2-6 has been 28%, but if you notice, look at these other 8 combinations. There haven't been any. That's not too bad. So I kind of go along with that because there's times where this display down here, you might have, let's just use the 9 as an example. There might be 9 of these things that have come up, and when you look at it, you'll find out that everything in here is full of numbers, and it might be like 25%, 33%, 25%, 42%, something like that, filling it up. Well, I look at that and I go, gosh, that's a lot. And when you start getting over 25%, 25 or greater percentage points, that starts to make me a little leery as to whether I want to play that next roll. I don't have to win on this next roll. I would just prefer not to lose. Okay, I just try to avoid my 7 outs. So if this is a high percentage chance of a 7 coming up, I just turn my money off and I wait a roll or 2. I just look at each roll as an individual new cycle of bets to be played. There are days where this thing is just so on, it's hard to believe. Looking down here right now, we see the 6 and the 4 both values of 7. So there's been 7 7s after the 6 and 7 7s after the 4. Well, for a 6, that's not uncommon because it's the most frequent combination, so that can happen. And when we look at it, I see there's 10, 16%, a 20, and 2 25s. That's really not too bad. Let's see how many combinations we've had of 6 right now. It says we've had this session 37 combinations of 6. So, it's about a 20% chance the 7 will fall. And that, 16.6 is where it should fall. So at the 20, I can live with that. If it averaged out closer to, let's say, 35, 40%, I would turn my money off after that. Now, let's take a look at the 4 down here, because that seems to be a little high. Well, here we have 33% chance, 22, and the 14. Well, that does look a little high. A 33, obviously, is very high. 1 out of 3 chance on that one alone. This thing is just under the 33, so it's 2 for 9 instead of 3 for 9. And a 2 for 14, I could live with that one. So on a hard 4, chances are I'll let my money still stay on. But on the 1 3 3 1, it's a good possibility I'm turning my money off, especially, without a doubt, on a 1 3. Okay, so again, the 1 3 would be, this first number up here would be a 1, the bottom number would be a 3, just as depicted right here in this diagram. What else can we kind of follow up on here to help out? Let's take a look. The bottom is pretty much we kind of went over most of this. Here, the longest roll for our history is 35. For our session, the longest roll is 28. We went over the 28, that's going to be the 20 come-out wins, the 8 come-out losses. The most wins in a row is 7, the most losses in a row is 6. Strategically, what that would tell me is this. Let's say that this was only about a 3, being most wins in a row or 3. That would tell me that anytime a player has made 2 points, I'm going to wait for him or her to establish their next point, and then I would immediately lay that point. The reason I wouldn't do it on the come-out roll, making it a don't pass, is because we had 20 come-out wins. If that was a 2, yeah, I'd go ahead and play the don't on the come-out roll. But since this is so high, I will just wait till they establish their point, and then I would lay that particular number. The 6, 8, I'm kind of off and on those, but anything outside of those 2 numbers, I would definitely go ahead and lay it. Maybe only for $5 to $10, but I would take the odds, because if we've only had the most wins as 3 in a row, and this person's already had 2, chances are they're not going to make that third point. All right? Well, I hope this kind of opens up and lets you go along with a little more following as to how this program is set up to be used. Leave us some comments. We'd be glad to get back to you. The email address is bubblecrapstracker. Excuse me, it's not. It's bubblecraps@gmail.com. And of course, the app is BubbleCraps Tracker, available on the Play Store. If you like the information that you've been receiving, please be sure and subscribe and give us a quick thumbs up so we can keep you updated as to new releases to the videos as they come out. Thanks, and have a pleasant